Little Horse and Big Conversation. Welcome to Little Horse and Big Conversation, where we give them their say, let the horse guide the way. Here at Little Horse and Big Conversation, we have the choice, so let's give them a voice. Here at Little Horse and Big Conversation, Little Horse and Big Conversation.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Little Horse Big Conversation podcast with your hosts, Amy Mitchell.
And my co-host Ross Cooper. Thank you very much for joining us for this next episode, and would like to give a big shout out first of all to the very fabulous Isa Moon, who has recorded our fantastic little jingle there. I've known Isa for several years as a client in my hoof trimming business, but I very much now would call her a friend. And amongst other things, she is a very fabulous musician. So we're very grateful to have had her input on our podcast.
I hope she's blushing at that.
I'm sure she is.
So actually, that
We'll put a little link in the show notes to Isa's website, so that if anyone else would like to check out more of her stuff, she does have some CDs and she does some fantastic music workshops, etc. So please do check her out.
and actually, talking about Isa and what Isa does, she's a healer and she offers quite a lot in terms of self-care and self-healing modalities for people, which links on very nicely to our topic of interest for today, which is all about advocating for ourselves. So, really interesting. So, Amy, you actually came out with a quote, I think it was a couple of months ago now, which prompted this this topic, which was "Comparison is the thief of all joy" by Theodore Roosevelt. And I think it really opened up that wider dialogue about comparison and how to advocate for yourself, especially in a professional role and what that comes with. Because we're very susceptible to comparison, effectively.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the way of the world nowadays, isn't it? Unfortunately, I suspect it's something that people have always done. As humans, we have a tendency to look at what other people are doing and think, gosh, that person's better than me, more skilled than me, doing better than me. But I think in these days of social media, it's amplified massively, and it's all too easy. You can be fabulous at what you do, but it's also too easy to get into that like doom scrolling on social media and start looking at how other people are doing things and how they appear to be, everything seems to be going brilliantly for them, and you start questioning, oh my goodness, and they're using different techniques and getting results and saying this is the only way to do it, and you start looking at it and thinking, oh my God, this is not what I do, maybe I don't know anything, and can end up in this kind of like rabbit hole of doom. And it can really mess with your self-worth.
Yeah, it's such a two-sided coin, isn't it? Because I think social media, I mean, let's talk about Facebook. That's been around since what, 2018? I think was it about 2018, 2000? No, 2008 rather. I've missed out a whole decade. So I think, can you remember when Facebook first started? It actually seemed pretty social
I
in the
mean,
sense.
I've got to be honest, I avoided it for years.
Was
I've
you
only
MySpace?
I've been a relative newcomer to it. I've only been involved in Facebook land for probably less than 10 years, really, since I started with my hoof business, and felt that I needed to be on it as a kind of a work marketing tool. But up until that point, I was one of the outlaws. I I managed to avoid all social media up until that point.
God,
And it's that
I'm
time of
going down
year.
a memory lane rabbit hole now, and I can remember before Facebook when I had Bebo.
Oh,
Remember Bebo?
no,
Oh dear, I think the less said about that, the
you're
better.
younger than me.
Um, but social media, I think it's changed so much over the years, and it's such a double-sided coin because I think the access that social media can provide for people who are maybe a little bit more isolated, and actually, you can see some pretty nice things online, and there's a wealth of information out there, but I think like you've already touched on, I think it presents us with such a false sense of connection, and it does promote that invitation to self-doubt and comparison in a very easy way, in a way that actually a lot of the time you're not fully aware of it.
Yeah, yeah,
You
very
only you
much.
only see the highlights. I don't think a lot of people, because I think we've all thought this at some time. You see something on social media that someone has posted and it's quite negative, and if you see that quite a lot, it's stuff that you don't really want to read or hear. So you've got that contrast between, oh, look, there's a highlight of someone's life, and it's going to be very specific. It's going to be a very specific element that they've chosen to share with the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's highly curated.
Yes. Whereas if they posted something which was maybe a little bit more realistic, albeit maybe slightly negative, you wouldn't want to see that either. So it's quite a tricky world to navigate, but I think the level of access that we have to the external world
Mm.
is part of this problem.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, when you're looking at it from a professional person's slant, I think it can really knock people's confidence. Um, we I discussions that we'll quite often end up having with students when they come to workshops is that we teach students, I'm just using this as an example, but we teach students to trim, um, and we teach some different trimming techniques. But then, if you go onto Facebook, you can end up seeing other people who, in some cases, are quite well respected and have very large followings and all the rest of it, basically denouncing anyone else's approach and saying that, what they do is the only thing that should be done, and that if you're not doing that, you're wrong and you're stupid. And, there's some quite negative and unpleasant language goes into a lot of it. Um, and people can look at that and be thinking, oh my God, like maybe what I'm doing is all wrong. And it can really knock people's confidence and make you feel bad about what you're doing. Um, and I think it's really important to be able to kind of step back from it and look at it and say, well, actually, no, that's interesting. Um, and I'm going to kind of look at that and take note of it, and maybe that's something that I'm going to investigate further and see whether it's something that I want to incorporate into some of my work or not. Uh, but just because this person is saying it doesn't make it right and doesn't make you rubbish and a bad person. But it's kind of easy to start feeling that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the time you get these filtered highlights and you don't always see the process or the starting point,
Yeah.
which provokes that sense of unfair comparison.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether
Because let's
that's
be honest, most people are, by the nature of it, you're posting your best work on things. You're not posting the things that have gone wrong.
but I
Or
think it's also healthy to post that because it's realistic and it's true to life. And I think
agreed, but that's not what happens, is it?
no, and why? Why do we think that isn't what happens? People don't like to share that because it makes, I think if you look at it, talking at it from a professional perspective, sharing something that's maybe gone wrong or something that hasn't gone quite right, for whatever reason that may be,
Yeah.
does that make you, I think it promotes that feeling of inferiority. It
And it
makes,
opens you up to the whole like criticism, doesn't it? Of every keyboard warrior is going to have an opinion.
Yes, and that's there's so many different avenues with it because you may be presenting something which actually is I think it's just as important to see where things go right as things that are a work in progress and need improvement. But I think because of the lack of accountability that people have online,
Mm,
or the lack of accountability that people seem to have for themselves as an unfortunate generalization at the moment, I think the conversations that could be had in a lot kinder way, they don't manifest in that way.
no.
And I think it's a massive shame.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, I try I try to avoid scrolling through stuff on Facebook, and I've personally got quite good at blocking people who, for whatever reason, their content makes me feel either inferior, or that it makes me like cross or whatever. It's like I don't actually need that negativity in my life. I'm just not going to look at it. Um,
Yeah.
but I think something, I can't remember who I'd had the conversation with, but I was talking to somebody about social media, and I think we're going off on a bit of a tangent here, but just, but bear with. Um, I, as a species, like we're not designed to be connected with that number of people.
Sorry,
Like,
I'm laughing because you had this conversation with me.
yeah, well, there we go.
It
But
was
it's
me.
true, isn't it? Like, we're
Really
not.
true.
We're not designed to have connections with like thousands of people all over. I mean, you think back, like, okay, so we're always talking about what is species appropriate for
Mhm.
horses. Like
Yes.
it's we see it's really important. Are we meeting their innate needs? And we really understand that their emotional and physical health is bound up in meeting all those innate needs. Are we doing the same with ourselves? Absolutely not.
No.
And this, like, this is a small facet of it, but if you think back to our human heritage, you'd be in a small family group, potentially in a village. That would be as pretty much as far as your contact went. And then gradually, as things have changed, okay, then people are in towns and you've got more contacts. But just having this like bombardment of contact with so vast numbers of people, it's not we're not designed to deal with that, I don't think. And I don't think it's good for our mental health.
No, no, completely agree. And one thing that, since we had that conversation, because we had this conversation, it must have been about a year ago. So
Yeah.
this episode has been a year in the making.
Oh my God.
Um, I remember when we had it, and one thing that we spoke about was the news.
Yeah.
And the news, I think, is a prime example. Now, there's absolutely no judgment from me how people want to live and what they want to see. But with the news, for me, I find everything going off in the world too much because, again, it is very much media hype blown out of proportion. But I have actually felt a lot lighter
Mm.
by making sure that my algorithm, that my newsfeed is actually very, very specific to not to me and what I want to see, but the access to everything else is more limited,
Yeah.
and therefore feel less overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's being able to recognize that and what actually how are we living our lives? Are
Yeah.
we meeting those needs?
Yeah. I mean,
Within
again, we could go down like a massive rabbit hole here of, going back to the whole innate needs thing. I mean, I feel like technology is wonderful in many ways, but equally, I think so many people have become so disconnected from nature and,
hugely.
you know, our over reliance on technology to entertain and sustain us and all that, it's not a healthy thing.
And it's not sustainable.
No.
No. I mean, you've come across Maslow's hierarchy of needs, haven't you?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
So, for anyone listening who doesn't know what Maslow's hierarchy of needs is, so Abraham Maslow was an American psychologist who published a paper called, I think it was A Theory of Human Motivation back in the 1940s, which included the hierarchy of human needs. So, if you picture a pyramid with five-tiered levels, the concept that he came about with was human motivation is in an order from bottom to top. So the bottom relating to more physiological needs, feelings of safety, psychological needs such as feelings of love and belonging, with esteem needs of feeling accomplished, and finally, the top tip is self-actualization, sorry. So the potential, creativity, and purpose. Now, if you look at those tiers within that pyramid, do we feel safe in our own bodies? A lot of the time, that is a basic need. Those
Mm.
physiological needs aren't being met.
No, and I
And
think a lot of the social media thing actually just triggers all that, doesn't it? Those kind of fundamental basics.
yes.
I mean, I
So
know we didn't intend this podcast to be entirely based around social media this episode, but I think it's such a fundamental part of a lot of our lives now. You can't not talk about it, really.
not with the influence that it has on us.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about it, going a little bit more into, what happens when needs aren't met. So, what needs do people have? Why are they important? And, you know, the I mean, for you, for example, how does it manifest in your body if your needs aren't met or if you feel slightly compromised? So, if needs are not met, we may experience, the negative feelings. Like if our needs are met, we experience positive feelings. All feelings provide you with information about your balance. Because I think
Yeah.
Gabor Mate, I mean, you in was it one of your recent webinars? You quoted him. So quoting him again, he says there is no body that is not mind, no mind that is not body. So, the emotions that we feel manifest in the body and will cause imbalance. So, they can't not, whether we look at this from an energetic sense of disrupting the flow of chi, or something that's a little bit more tangible, like the physiological effects we experience. I mean, we've had this, before we started recording, we've just had this conversation about how it manifests for us or how it is manifesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I am often the maker of my own um my own issues. Um,
Aren't we all?
which was pretty much the conversation we were having before we started recording as I dashed in all flustered and you know it's like, oh my God. um yeah, I mean I personally have a habit of taking too much on. Um and there's multiple reasons why I do that, but I do have a habit, and there's probably people chuckling away in the background hearing that who know me, because never let it be said I should have 2 minutes in my day that are not filled up with some kind of productive activity. Um, um, but as a result, I will sometimes it's fine when everything goes to plan, but then when something throws the plan out, I can then get into a bit of anxiety and panic and then and I overdo it and then I feel utterly exhausted. I think that's and previously when I had more stress in my life from work and other things, I used to get a lot of migraines. So that's that whole mind body connection. I have to say since having changed what I do, from from working to being self-employed and um, changing my relationship status. Um, I I don't get that many migraines anymore. So for me, that's a big kind of clue that my mind-body connection is improved. Uh, but again, like over Christmas, I'd done my classic thing of having been working stupidly hard, and at the time, I was going through the process of trying to reorganize my work pattern, um, to be working 3 weeks and then having week number 4 for doing other things. But in order to try and kind of move all those blocks around to get everything to work, it all got a bit much as I was trying to pass some clients on to students and get all clients reorganized into the new schedule and so on. It by the time we hit Christmas and I had a week off, I was I was both physically and mentally quite exhausted. Um, and then, I just needed, for me, one of the ways that I really unwind is just spending time on my own. Like for me, I find that really energizes me by just kind of being on my own and doing things myself, like the stuff with my dogs and my horses and so on my own. Um, but any little work interruption into that whacks my anxiety right up because it straight away throws you back into work mode. Um, and I think I know clients never do it with any intent of causing that. Um, but if I've got a week off and I start getting messages from clients, it whacks my anxiety through the roof. And over Christmas, I actually ended up having a panic attack, which I've not had for years, because some poor person contacted me asking some questions about their horse in my week off, and it just like it just it hit me over the edge. So for me, that was quite a clear sign that I was not advocating well for myself, and that I'd allowed things to get a bit too much. So since then, I have been working. Despite the fact that this week, I have managed to kind of, for various reasons, end up in a bit of a pickle. Generally, I think I'm managing things a lot better.
I think you are. I would agree.
Yeah.
I think the way that you've changed how you work and your working style,
Yeah.
I think that has both opened you up to making time to take on new projects, but it's but it's also allowed you to create, generally speaking, a better balance.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah. Other than the odd, little, and everyone has that when, things go a bit out of kilter. But generally, I'm feeling really good about my work-life balance at the moment. Yeah. Yeah. How about you? How are these things working for you?
I think I've improved. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you would agree.
I was just about to say, and don't fib when you answer this.
Only honesty within this room. Um, so I would probably say, I mean, the same physiological aspect that's happening for you is happening for me, but they just manifest themselves in different ways.
Yeah.
So I would probably say I'm pretty prone to throw myself into a bit of a burnout cycle.
Yeah.
So so burnout's pretty much a state of exhaustion where it can hit you physically, mentally, emotionally. And, you know, whether it's a panic attack, whether it's burnout, it all comes from the same imbalance of nervous system dysregulation because we are effectively, stress. I think stress is a good thing, but, you know, because of the hormones that like cortisol that is constantly being produced, if you are upregulated and you're basically going from day to day in a sympathetic state. If it remains overactive, it isn't good. And that is pretty much what I experience a lot of the time. So I go through, I do go through these cycles where I, so for example, I might have a week off. It takes me 2 or 3 days to actually start to balance out somewhat. And then going back to work, I feel very much like Yeah, really enjoying this, all for it. Everything's planned out, nice and balanced. And what I gradually would find is maybe over a 2, 3, 4, 5 week period is that I will be enjoying what I'm doing so much that I forget to put those boundaries in with myself
Mm.
and say, well, actually, no, I'm sorry, I can't accommodate that. Instead of going, actually, yeah, no, that's fine. And it ends up in this accumulation where the cycle just keeps on repeating itself until I'm 6 weeks down the line. I'm completely frazzled, and therefore I can't work from the space where I need to come from, and I feel slightly compromised.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I
And
think it's interesting because we have these conversations, because like I say I feel like, I mean, I certainly haven't got it 100% right, but I feel like I've made some really good improvements to that kind of thing. And then you and I have conversations about it, and you'll say, right, I'm going to have this week off and I'm going to do these things. And then we have a conversation, and it's like, yeah, well, I ended up doing this day work wise. And then I ended up going out and I thought, well, if I'm going to see one client, I might as well do a day's worth. And then, it's like, Ross, you've not had any time off, have you? You've had like half a day.
you know what? It's really funny that
What
you
are you
bring this.
doing?
I was, and it's, these patterns are not going to change without making lifestyle adjustments because they're
Yes.
effectively down to my lack of self-care, poor boundaries, and overcommitting, which is classic me.
Yeah. Yes.
And I
Absolutely.
was with someone the other day, and I can't remember how the conversation came about, but they made a comment about their work life and time off, and I said something like, "Tell me about it." And they went, "Well, you're self-employed. You can have time off whenever you want." And I just
Sorry. I
and
didn't
they
mean to
turned,
laugh quite so loudly.
no, no, it's true, isn't it? Because I was like, um, and they turned around and said, "Well, you're always away." And I just kind of, looked with the invitation to hear a little bit more where this was going. And it's like, well, you've been away a couple of times this year. And I said, it's the middle of April. I've spent 3 days abroad and I spent 3 days in London. It's the middle of April and I have not had a single day off besides those 6 days.
Yeah.
And that isn't, that's not to be worn as a badge of honor.
No,
That is
that's
something to
very
go,
bad.
that's very bad, man. You need to change something up. But there's no excuse for it, but what I've said about, the lack of boundaries and the overcommitting.
So why do you
And
think you do that?
the questions, the questions. You know, what do we get from our work that promotes us to sacrifice ourselves to this extent? I mean, I think where that comes from, I like this. Well, I just leave
Put
everyone
you
in
on the
a moment
spot.
of suspense. They're checking their Wi-Fi connection. So for me, I think I put too much self-worth into my work.
Yeah.
And on a level as well, and I know I've said this before, I also sometimes feel like I am made for more than one lifetime.
Yeah.
So many things that I really enjoy doing and have such an interest in that it's not physically possible to do all of those things as one person at any one time.
Yeah.
If we're narrowing it down just purely to, my work with horses, I do love it and I do enjoy it so much, and I'm so fortunate to be in this position. And I do try and practice quite a lot of gratitude around this. Not as much as what I should consciously do, but I think because I put so much value into what I do, that it may trigger uncomfortable feelings of self-worth, low self-esteem, which, as we covered earlier, links
Mm.
into that cycle of comparison. So at times, so if I have a day off, I feel like I've had to earn the day off, which isn't. which
Mm, that's
isn't
quite
healthy.
interesting. Yeah.
That's not needed. And I have done work on that. So that thought pattern isn't as prevalent as what it may have been 3 years ago. But when I have gone through that cycle of burning out and doing too much, it is a pattern that still rears its head. But when you are feeling a bit threadbare mentally, old patterns will resurface. That's a basic fact. So I think because I do invest a lot of myself in what I do, I think it maybe creates a negative narrative for that push to do more than what I should be doing.
Mm, yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
my primary thought that comes to mind with that question.
Yeah. No, I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. Because I suspect that for different people, there are going to be a host of reasons why you would get into that kind of a spiral. I mean, I'm guessing there's those kinds of things that you've talked about, and I guess there's also like the need to be all things to all people, and to try and meet, you know, not wanting people to have a bad opinion of you. Um, that's which kind of, I guess, when you dig into that a bit deeper, it comes to a sort of a bit of a fear of rejection.
Yes.
That like we all can have. Um, and linking a bit back to some of the things we were talking about last week, a bit of a fear of loss. If you feel like you're not meeting people's expectations for whatever reason, that if you then get rejected from a work perspective, that can have a knock-on impact on your income, which as a self-employed person is always going to be something that is important to us. Um, and I guess there's also that most of us take some value for ourselves of feeling liked and appreciated, and if you feel that you're again not meeting people's expectations, that you might lose some or all of those things, which we use rightly or wrongly for our own kind of self-worth. um I
And it
think,
motivates us,
yeah,
rightly or wrongly.
yeah. So it can be kind of easy to get into, like, and I think again, going back to technology, like we all carry these bloody mobile phones around with us. You're so easy to contact, and it can be, we start thinking about what, well, how do you manage these things and kind of control it and make things workable and put boundaries in place. I mean, but the very fact that we are nowadays, anyone can contact you at any time because we these blooming mobile phones, they're like a tyrant. Um, and then there's, if you people can sometimes have an expectation that if they've messaged you, you should be getting, if they've seen that you've read the message, that you should therefore be replying back straight away. And then we get into this like, oh my God, I haven't replied to that. And for me, that was a thing that I was struggling quite a bit with, was like I'd get home, and as I say, for me, a way that I recharge is just by not talking to people for a bit.
Valid. Yeah.
And I really value my personal time. But then getting messages on my phone is interrupting that, and it then creates that anxiety. Um,
Interesting here. So, where does the motivation come from for you?
for the overworking.
The overworking, because one point that I do want to ask you about after I've obviously asked you this, is
Yeah,
reference to that book that you've mentioned to me called
yeah.
Oh, I think
Okay.
how
So,
you feel might be relevant.
yeah, so I think there's a few things. I mean, I love what I do. Um, and I really, there's a few aspects to my business. But I really enjoy working with horses. I enjoy building up good relationships with my clients. I really enjoy supporting my students, teaching my students, all those things. I get a huge amount of value out of, and it energizes me, and I love doing it. Um, I think I also have a quite a drive to be successful. Um, so, I want to be good at what I do, and I want to have, I don't want to be rich. I'd have stayed in my old business role. If I
Horses and
wanted to be
rich.
rich,
Horses and
but
rich.
I would like to, I like to feel comfortable that I'm not, panicking to earn money. Um, and I think for me, there's constantly a little, like, I feel like over the last 12 months, my businesses are doing well. And, I'm really happy with how things are going with my businesses. With my trimming business is great. I've got fantastic clients. And having restructured that a bit has been brilliant. I feel like that's going really well. And we're achieving really good things for those horses and those owners. And the academy, I think, is growing from strength to strength. But I think there's always this little voice in the back of my head that says, if you stop working so hard, this might all fall apart. And I think, and then I feel almost a degree of guilt when I take some time off, because I'm thinking, yeah, but if I take time off, I'm not doing this great long list of admin things that I still need to do, and it might all go wrong. I think that I think that's some of it. Like this fear of having built something that I'm really proud of, like a fear of it falling apart. If I'm truly honest, I think there's elements of that. Gosh,
Thank
this
you
is
for
quite
that.
open and soul revealing.
Guilt, fear, and everything in between. Welcome to episode 9.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. It's an interesting one.
It is. And one thing that you said within that, so I took from knowing you, I took quite a lot away from that. But you said one thing about over the past 12 months, you feel
Mm.
that your business is doing well. What's changed for you within that 12 months, which internally, because externally, you've always been doing well. So what internally has changed for you within the past 12 months, which makes you now feel like you're doing well?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually.
Please don't feel you need to answer it today, but
No,
it's
I think that's a good question, and I probably do need to think on it a bit more. But I guess my initial thing is that I feel like I have now got more control over it, and I feel like, as in, I feel like I'm controlling my work a bit more than my work controlling me. Um, and I feel like because I went away and did some training, and I saw some different ways of doing things, and I came back and tried it out and started getting some good results. So I feel like I've kind of found my niche, as it were. And I feel really happy with the results that I'm getting. And, as I say, I've got such a great group of clients, and I feel very privileged to be able to share in their journeys. And I think that and with the growing of the training business, I just kind of feel like it's all coming together kind of nicely, and it just feels good. Yeah. I don't know if
and
that
that's good. And I think it's one of those as well where, we are in a self-employed position.
Mm,
And I think with self-employment does come a lot of benefits, but also a lot of uncertainties.
yeah.
And self-employment itself can get out of control, which can promote us to feel either positive or a little bit out of whack with things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think, a lot of the time there are, I mean, you're self-employed. What are the parts that people don't see of you? The behind the scenes work, because people only really see you, me, when they're with us for that period of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
So you're very much like Ross the horse person, like the horse trainer, and I'm Amy the hoof person. Whereas which is absolutely fine because that's
That's
what the
their
person's
role.
engaging you to do.
Yeah,
And that's perfectly right. But beyond that, as a business owner, you're also the booking department and the person that sorts all the insurance out and that has to keep the vehicle on the road and has to do all the marketing and accounting and like it's there's this massive great just managing a small business is so much more than just the actual service that you are offering up. It's all the rest of the stuff. I mean, I'm really lucky that for the training side of things, my lovely friend Tracy helps me out with the student workshops and is amazing. And I have a fantastic lady called Kim who helps me out with some admin things, and I have Sam at the yard. So I've got a great team of people that help me. Um, and they're all fabulous, and I couldn't cope without their help. But there's still a mountain of things that just constantly need to be done for a small business. Um, so yeah, so there's that aspect of it, and then there's also the well, all of us as professional people have this this persona that people see you as, but you have all these other aspects to your personality as well, and other things that you are important to you in your life. And there's a risk that if we're allowing too much of the business, no matter how much you love it, but how much if you allow the business to take you as a person over too much, then how do you meet those other aspects of your personality and those other things that are really important to you, your friend relationships and your personal relationships and the other things that you enjoy doing in life. We need to really make sure that we're kind of allowing for those things as well.
because people, we're pretty multi-dynamic. We're not just one-sided.
Yeah, 100%.
And I I mentioned earlier, it's a role. Well, it's not really a role in the sense of a role, but people may, like you said, perceive us as that is Ross the horse person and Amy the hoof woman. So, that is their perception. And there's of course no judgment for that. And I think when it comes down to people's perception of you, I think I think everyone can be forgiven for, not always consciously being aware of actually, especially if you're not self-employed or you just have very different perspectives or experiences on things,
Mm,
that, people aren't always aware of everything that does go on behind the scenes, Like you were saying, you could do six trims a day, I could do six lessons a day, but in between that, there's the getting to and fro, there's, everything
eating.
around the house. Yes. Yes. There's, if you've got animals, if you've got your own horses, if you've got, ill parents to look after, there's the paperwork, there's the admin, there's the organize, everything, which people may see you doing 6 hours, but really it's the other eight on top of that
Yeah,
amounts to actually your working day.
yeah.
And as well, I do actually just want to throw this out there is because it's a bit of a topic that we've had a few conversations about. And when people see you in your professional capacity,
Mm,
a lot of the time people will value you on you being there, you offering that service, and the cost of that service. But there's also, for a lot of professionals out there, it's very much unseen the amount of effort that they put in professionally into their self-development within that service. And I think
Yeah.
that is really important to highlight for everyone out there because I think that is, I mean, I know we're both exactly the same on that sense, that we're always learning something new and always wanting to better our craft,
Yeah.
whether that is reading a book, whether that is taking a course, whether that is going on a CPD weekend, whether that, there's multiple different ways, and that all accumulates to that 1 hour or that hour and a half that you are presenting to that person. It's all the time that you've put in aside from what they're just seeing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
no,
that
it's very true. It's very true. And I think, the vast majority of people that I know that work in our industry are, very much the same. They're constantly because it's and that's part of what it makes it an awesome thing to be doing, working with horses. There's always, we're never going to know it all, and there's always new stuff, and there's always new ideas and new information, and you just think like you've got your head around one thing, and then something else comes up, and you're like, oh wow, that's going to have an impact on what I'm doing over here, so I better go and learn about that, and which is, is fantastic. But yeah, it all takes up time and resources. Um, yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it?
and that's where your boundaries need to come into play. But I
Yeah,
mean, your self boundaries.
yeah,
I mean, clear limits of not just with others, because I think when people talk about boundaries, people always have reference to boundaries with other people, but they're also there to protect us and
yeah.
to help us find balance. And boundaries don't necessarily need to be negative things. If anything, I
No,
think
not at
they're
all.
exceptionally healthy.
Mm.
But I think, no, we only said this last week. No, it's a very powerful word, but it's one that a lot of people feel uncomfortable hearing, but also using. Because
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Like that it's why do we feel that we have to say yes to things? I think nowadays I've got really a million times better at saying actually no, that's not for me.
agreed.
Um,
Yeah,
and I think it's made a big difference. Being able to comfortably say actually no, that's not going to work for me. It doesn't have to be, it's not a bad thing to be able to say. And actually, I think it's good sometimes also to be on the receiving end of somebody saying actually no, because again, it's not a negative, uh, and it sets both sides of whatever the thing is up. Like there's nothing worse than feeling you have to say yes to something that you really don't want to, and then your gut is saying, "Oh, why have you agreed to this? This is wrong," and so on, and then it's not great for the other person either because they're not getting the full all in kind of version of what of you. So yeah, I'm a great, like I say this to, like, students will say, oh, somebody asked me this, that, and the other, and like there's a really simple answer to that. Just say no. Like, it's okay. You don't have to do it. Just say no, thank you. This is not for me.
it's not coming from an authentic place. If
Yeah.
if you're going against how you feel, because you know we need on a on a very basic physical level, we need boundaries for us to feel any element of safety and our nervous system to feel safe to thrive. Without them, I mean, I think we learn boundaries from a pretty young age, don't we? And we're socially conditioned to please, which is why I think we do
Yeah.
have the issue with saying no. And yeah, I think personal relationships are just as important as professional relationships.
Yeah.
Boundaries in a professional capacity. I mean, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this. And I think it's something that maybe more so over the past 6 months or so, I've felt happier with in terms
Yeah.
of how the response maybe received or relayed back. So I mean, for me, I think it's pretty important for clients to have boundaries because then they know where they are.
Yeah,
Whether that is in terms of, accessibility to you, whether that is in terms of time periods, limitations. We often talk about the fact that I have a waiting list, which I'm very, very grateful for, of course. I equally don't like the fact that I have a waiting list because I don't like to keep people waiting. So it's lovely that people are happy to sit on there. But one of the main reasons that I put that together is because if I am saying yes to people, that could very easily compromise me oversubscribing myself, overcommitting,
sure.
and having a very poor boundary. And I personally don't feel that is right for that client. I don't want to offer them half of myself,
Mm,
and by extension, of course, their horse, because they don't deserve any less than that. But also from a time factor, I don't want to take someone on with a remedial issue with their horse if I'm saying, yeah, I can see you for 2 weeks, but after that, I can't manage it for another month. It's inconsistent.
yeah,
And that's when it starts to make people feel uncomfortable and promote those sensations of and emotions of, resentment and those little niggly emotions that we don't always like to feel. So I think, from a professional perspective,
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that
I think that's good. And I think it's I mean it's also again, since I've changed the way that I structure my diary, I've been able to be really good about it. But I used to struggle, like people would contact me and say, "Oh, are you taking any new clients on?" And I'd think, "Well, no, not really." But I would always make the mistake of going, "Well, not really, but where are you based? And like, what situation?" And they'd come back and they'd be like near to some other clients, and there'd be some sort of issue that I thought I could help with, and so I'd be like, "Well, it's just one more horse." Do you know what I mean? But before you know it, that one more horse becomes 10 more horses, and then 10 more horses becomes 15 more horses, and before you know it's like suddenly you're back in the, oh, I've got no days off for the next 3 weeks kind of situation. So yeah, I've found being able to say, actually, no, I'm just, doesn't matter what the situation or where you're based or whatever it is, I just, I am at capacity and that's, that's how it is. And I think that's been really kind of beneficial. Um, but it's that thing, isn't it, of you're self-employed and people are contacting you because they want your service. It's like it's hard to turn the work down as well into, and I think particularly early on, earlier on in your business until you've got kind of confident with your client retention rates and that sort of thing. There's always a little voice of like, oh yeah, but if you turn them down, like, you might lose a client next week and then you'll, what. Whereas I don't feel I'm in that situation anymore. I'm quite comfortable with where I'm at in terms of volumes of clients. But I can imagine and I know it was the case for me, while you're trying to build your business and in the early stages of your business, it can feel that pressure. Um, it can feel, and again, I think, I've mentioned it in the last episode. Again, I strongly believe that the vast majority of people in our industry don't charge enough,
no, no.
realistically.
And that in itself, that is another way that it will manifest in professional life, in a professional capacity.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
And
value.
I feel, yeah, I mean, I feel we need to do a whole episode on that sort of on that topic, really,
Oh,
because
we will. We will.
yeah, because I think it's, it's really important. And you shouldn't be having to have your equine professional of any sort turning up in a banged up old car that they can barely afford to run, and that if something goes wrong, like if people have done lots of training and are working really hard and providing an excellent service, they should be able to be appropriately, not ripping people off, but you should be able to make a decent living out of what you do, without killing
Yeah.
yourself.
Do you
Um,
think it's something that, I mean, I've experienced it, so this is by no means a justification, but a lot of my personal investment, I
mm,
like to put back into learning in
yeah.
whatever capacity, but I very much like to travel and experience, especially anything, wildlife related. I'm down for seeing anything like that. That is obviously one of my big passions. And I'm very hot on finding good deals.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just me being quite savvy with that side of things. And again, that's not something that I need to justify to anyone.
No.
That is me there offering an explanation. But the amount of times that I feel like a boundary has been overstepped because people make a comment, "Oh, are you going away again?
Oh,
Oh,
really?
we're paying you too much."
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
that one really grinds my gears.
and I don't think I don't think it's an appro I think it's an inappropriate comment to make, and I don't think it's an appropriate comment to make, which are obviously one of the same.
Yeah.
But it also feels like a boundary's been overstepped because it feels slightly disrespectful to me personally, because there always seems to be that undertone. And if people want to people can spend their money for me how they like. It's of no concern and no judgment to me. But that's I don't go out drinking. I don't spend a lot of.
Yeah, but there you are. You're justifying yourself
I
there.
am. I am. Stop it,
Stop
Ross.
it.
Stop it. Self boundary. Stop.
But
Uh,
it is, and again, I don't know what the psychology is behind it, but like you'll often see on Facebook posts, again going back to the old socials, but it's a prime example of it. Like someone sharing some information about laminitis, and then off the back of it saying, if you want to learn more, here's some more detailed stuff that you can buy off me. And you'll always get someone in the comments going, "Oh, well, if you really cared about horses, you'd give us that information for free." Like, no. Why? But you see it with all sorts of things. Oh, well, if you really cared about horses, you would do this for free. You'd give us this for free. Well, no, because this is a business. This is how I make my living. I've gone out and spent a lot of time learning this information and collating it together in a way that you can use it. Um, no, but there is that kind of like strange attitude. So I think I don't quite know. I don't know where it comes from, but that's
I've done
that's
a little bit
definitely there.
I've done a little bit about justification with my own self-development work,
Oh, interesting.
and it is very much interlinked with guilt. So I think this is going to be explored in a whole separate episode because I think we're going to need the time for that one.
Yeah, yeah. This
But
is
it's
yeah,
on a level, it's controlling people's perception of you because it's coming from a place of guilt.
yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think we've kind of meandered round a number of different facets and topics on while we've been talking today. Um, all basically around what are some of the pressures that primarily we as business owners within the equine industry, what are some of the pressures that we can come under, whether they are externally or self-inflicted. And I think there's a combination of both.
For sure.
Um, and then, how does that affect us? And I think it's quite clear using us as a sample of two. So, great scientific study. But, there are physical implications, emotional implications, implications for the knock-on effects for the rest of your life. Um, so what do I think it's kind of then what do we put in place in order to correct that balance? Like how do we advocate for ourselves. What is it that we're actually going to do? Um,
So,
so
what does self-care look like, and how do you advocate for yourself?
so for me personally, as I think I've said a few times, one of the things that I really value is me time. And I particularly enjoy doing things with my dogs. Most people that know me well know that I'm really into my dog training. And that's something that I get a huge amount of, and for me, that's my time when I can go and really just focus on that one thing, and everything else becomes an irrelevance because you're really in that kind of flow moment and really absorbed in what it is that you're doing. So for me, that's really important. And there's other things, that I'm now involved in that have kind of come out off the back of that. Um, but I think also making a point of little things like making a point of eating good food, like looking after your body physically and nourishing yourself physically. Um, but another thing that I have found really valuable is I try now, and I think I've got pretty good at it, is from 7 o'clock in the evening, I will no longer look at or respond to any work related messages.
Protecting your time.
Yeah, and that for me has made a big difference. So I'll sometimes put my phone on airplane mode. So if I still want to like whiz around the internet and do a bit of Amazon shopping, which um, quite often happens, I can do that, knowing full well that messages are not going to be pinging in that I'm then going to feel. But and to start with, it was uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Like I would see a message come in and I would see who it was from, and I would feel uncomfortable not reading it there and then. But I think because I've now got like I've got quite good at it, I'll now see it and think, okay, I'll look at that in the morning. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah, that
good
I think
clear
has been really
boundaries.
important.
Good clear boundaries.
Yeah,
Protect
yeah,
your time. You're not, well, I mean, we spoke about overcommitting, but yeah, protecting your time. And at the same time, that interlinks with, another headline of prioritizing your self-care. So, and I really like how you've done this with your own work schedule. And I've tried to start adopting a similar principle more so, and that's plan time in your diary in advance for you. So
yeah,
whether that is, and that doesn't need to be an entire week off, that really works for you. But
yeah,
I know personally with my lesson rotations, it isn't, it's not really
yeah. The
functional.
pattern doesn't fit the same.
No. So what I tend to do is make time in advance, but even if it's not the entire day, it is maybe possibly just an hour within that. So whether that is going out for a hike, whether that is going out with the camera, making some time to relax, recharge, and just go out and enjoy yourself just for the fun of it.
Yeah,
No agenda, just go and have fun.
yeah,
Escape room, throw yourself into a plunge pool, whatever that looks like,
yeah,
do it because you enjoy doing it. And I think there's a big lack of fun being had. And I think that is one of the greatest outlets that you can give
yeah.
yourself.
Massively underrated.
Massively, massively. And I think also building your confidence by pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
I think that's I think that's advocating for yourself in a slightly different way because you're allowing yourself to grow in a different way.
yeah, yeah. And I think like saying yes to opportunities. I mean, and this for me, in some ways, is a bit of my downfall because I then end up overcommitting. Um, but like time, our time, this is going to sound very deep. Our time is finite
Mhm.
for all of us, and you get this one experience, so far as we know. Um,
Oh, there's more.
well, I mean, maybe, hopefully, but if we how you spend that time is, I think, a much more important resource than money. money makes things more comfortable, but the most precious thing that we have is our time and how you choose to spend that time. And I feel like opportunities arise, and I think if you are open and you say yes to these opportunities, that opens new doors and gives you new experiences and opportunities for growth and like all this new richness that can come into your life. I think that's another important way. It's kind of advocating for yourself on a tangent, but it is that thing of taking a bit of a risk, and kind of going with things can add so much color and value and experience.
Time being the most valuable currency.
I think so.
And
Yeah.
I'm currently, I mean, you can see from my facial expression here. I'm sorry to anyone that's listening that can't see my facial expression right now, but I'm very whimsically looking out of the window, staring into space, actually thinking quite deeply on that
Yeah.
because, that's ultimately honoring yourself and living authentically because, you can apply that you can apply how you want to spend your time and how you choose to spend your time. We need to be so specific about that. And I think that is one of the biggest boundaries that you can have from a professional or a personal capacity. I mean, professionally, you need to honor yourself and, think about the way that you want to work. What can that look like? And you can take it forward in so many different ways, but advocating for yourself has got to be right for you.
Yeah.
It can't look like someone else's.
No.
It's
No,
right for you.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think actually, on that note, don't we both have places to be, putting a time boundary in place?
It's funny you should say that, Ross. Yes, I think we do.
It's like we planned that.
Oh my goodness. Ah, well, yeah. I mean, I've enjoyed this conversation. I think it's gone down a few avenues that we perhaps weren't expecting it to when we planned it out, but hopefully, I think it's given people a bit of food for thought, I hope. Um, One for a bit of understanding of the kind of pressures that come with being a small business owner, but two, for those of us that are small business owners, that this stuff, you need to take this stuff seriously, but you can't just leave it to drift. You actually have to kind of sit down and think, what is it that I want? What's important to me? And what is not acceptable to me? Sadie clearly agrees. Sadie. Um, and then plan your work and your boundaries and your lifestyle around that, because it's too easy just for things to drift and get out of control, and then suddenly you're in a bad place.
And I think, yeah, I would agree with all of that. And I think for anyone, because we are all going to experience overwhelm and pressures in very different ways, I think one of the best things that we can do is make those little changes. So everything that we've gone over from eating good, nutrient-rich food to actually planning a little bit of self-care within that week, do it little and do it little and often, because that is how you make the most significant changes and the biggest changes by piecing things together. It's like New Year's resolutions. They don't work because we hit the top and they are not achievable. You want to make things that are achievable. And ultimately, I think give yourself permission to do that because you don't need another person's permission to make these changes
Yeah.
and be your own biggest fan, effectively.
I think that's a beautiful way to end it. So,
Second,
yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for listening if you've made it this far. And we will very much look forward to catching up with you again on the next episode. Oh, and if you would do us the huge honor of liking, rating, and reviewing this podcast, that would be fabulous because it will help us to share it out to a wider audience. If you feel that's something you'd like to do.
thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Little horse and big conversation. Welcome to Little Horse and Big Conversation, where we give them their say, let the horse guide the way. Here at Little Horse and Big Conversation, we have the choice, so let's give them a voice. Here at Little Horse and Big Conversation, Little Horse and Big Conversation.